All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of our Career Insights series for the fall semester, Careers in Film and TV. My name is Jihyun Ju. I'm one of the advisors and a program coordinator here at Beyond Barnard. We'll be hearing from three Barnard alums today. Thank you so much to our panelists for making the time to join us. The bios of our alums I'll be dropping in the chat in just a second. There will be an audience Q&A toward the end of our program for our students in the room who are interested in asking our panelists a question. Feel free to unmute yourselves when the time comes. Okay. Great. So with that, we'll start off with introductions. If our panelists can talk about your current role and what sparked your initial interest in the work that you're doing now, that would be great. And any of you can jump in to get the conversation started.
Great, I'm happy to start. I'm Lily Kaplan. I run development in documentaries for a company called Dorothy Street Pictures. And development, for those who don't know it, is the creative process that happens before film or TV projects go into production. So development looks like finding great stories, getting access to the subjects of those stories, writing pitches, pitching to networks like what we're watching on our computers or phones, Netflix, HBO, Hulu, Amazon, that kind of thing, and getting a story up and running so it can be shot and made. What sparked my interest in my job is really storytelling. I love reading and writing and did a lot of acting at Barnard, and always loved stories and the different ways you could tell them. So was very excited to enter a career in documentary development.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, I'm Abby. I work for Brainstorm Media. We're an independent film distributor, and I do marketing and distribution strategy. So we release roughly between 12 to 18 new films a year, and I handle distribution in terms of all avenues: theatrical, VOD, pay one window sales, ancillary, library, monetization, all the through the full life cycle of a film getting put out into the world, and then also handle certain areas of like business development and managing our catalog. What got me interested in distribution was kind of an accident, just connecting from internship to internship during my time at Barnard. The last couple internships I ended up doing were both at film distributors, and I thought it was a really interesting merging of the creative process for film and the business side of it, where it kind of lets you express using your left and right brain.
I'm Sarah. I am the Development and Artist Support Associate with the Documentary Nonprofit Field of Vision. In my role, I support our executive producer with project sourcing, funding, and development. So we are able to fund through grants to about 50 to 20 projects a year. And I kind of oversee finding those projects and then also, helping develop them as much as we can, and also overseeing the slate of about 30 films that we are involved in. What sparked my interest, I always wanted to work in development. I was a film studies and English major at Barnard, and I just loved writing about film, and that was like the majority of my internships during my time at Barnard was entertainment writing, and I thought development was the perfect way to kind of continue that passion and that intersection of writing and thinking about films.
Wonderful, thank you all. And I know that everyone gave sort of an overview of what they do in their roles, but I'd love for each of you to talk about what your day-to-day work looks like.
Sure, I can start. My day-to-day work is very varied. High level, everything kind of revolves around finding an idea and turning it into a documentary. So that might be reading The New Yorker and reaching out and saying, I love this story, how can we partner? Or going down the street and looking at what's going on and speaking to someone about a current event. More realistically, though, it is managing a slate similar to Sarah of about 30 plus projects, all in different stages of creative development and kind of producing the story that's going to become what the documentary is about and finding a director to attach. I work with a wonderful group of producers who are sort of on the ground looking for stories, and I'm kind of managing where those stories go and how they're told and whatnot. So, something as big as finding a main character to something as small as fact checking or proofreading a log line totally depends on the day.
Cool. I guess we'll stick to the same order. My day-to-day, in a similar way, it depends on where each film is at, and it's in the process of the release. So earliest, in the process, we're pitching to filmmakers for completed films that we're trying to acquire, putting out offers, doing P&Ls to make sure that it's financially viable. There's a lot of filmmaker management on a day-to-day basis, and management means there's a lot of crazy personalities that you deal with on that side. On the creative process, I work with creative agencies to develop key art and trailers for our films, media buying agencies for our campaigning, PR agencies for our publicity. And then on a B2B level, I'm pitching our titles to various TVOD, AVOD, SVOD platforms, both availing them so that they should program them on their platforms, as well as pitching them for seasonally so that they can get merchandised and promoted on platform.
My day-to-day also varies a lot. I feel like it's split between kind of the two aspects of my titles. So the development part requires that we have a submissions portal that's open at all times for anyone in the world to submit to us whenever they want their documentary pitches. And so I'm overseeing that portal all the time, just making sure we're following through on passes or follow-throughs or green lights, and kind of surfacing projects that I think are of interest for our executive producer. And that also involves staying in touch with producers, filmmakers, artists, journalists who want to work with us and are in our inboxes. And then on top of that, also attending film festivals and forums and making sure we're visible and going to pitches and just learning about what's out there. And then the artist support side is overseeing our slate, and that can look like, often we get rough cuts of films and people want our notes, so I screen a lot and compile those notes for our executive producer and to kind of send those out. And I'm just kind of there as like the first point of contact for anything that they may need throughout production. So yeah, my day-to-day is a lot of emails, a lot of watching things, and I feel like that's the most consistent through line, I guess, in my day-to-day.
Emails for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Just thinking back on your career trajectory thus far, what opportunities did you find to be most nourishing for you in getting involved in your current field? And we'd love to hear about internships that were really nourishing for you, like classes that you might have taken at Barnard that you felt were really just helpful for you. And layering into that question, what skill sets have been most transferable to the positions that you've pursued thus far?
Yeah, I can't plug the Barnard English major more. I mean, it really was a direct, people give that joke of like, what are you going to do with an English major? And everyone who goes to Barnard knows that you can do a lot with an English major. That was an incredibly additive experience for me. The amount of reading and writing and critical thinking that warranted was fantastic, and I genuinely use it every day. Classes that were helpful, I'm thinking of professors more than the names of classes, but I took an amazing class with Peggy Ellsberg, who really taught me how to write in a way that was transformative. I took awesome classes with Maura Spiegel. I majored in English and film, and she was amazing. I know Sarah took her too. And I also I minored in psychology, which was also invaluable because you really do work with a range of personalities, no matter what you do. But the entertainment industry presents lots of different types of people. So it's always good to know how to psychoanalyze. But one of the best aspects of Barnard for me was that I could take these amazing classes and, like you said, also intern. So I had a great internship with the Barnard alum, Amy Talkington, if anyone knows her work. She's a screenwriter, and she's made a lot of scripted films in kind of the young female space. She did a remake of Valley Girl that's coming to mind. She did a project called Ever After High. She's really great. I was her development assistant when I was at school, and it really taught me the ropes of development and thinking creatively. I interned for a doc production company called Seftel Productions, which was a small production company, and it was great because you got to see what a producer does and a director does and a fixer does and an editor does, and you really got to understand these roles that I think if you're not in the space, it's hard to understand. And I also interned at Vogue, which was a really different experience, and that really threw me into the corporate side of things. That was actually my first internship, and as you might understand, I kind of veered away more into entertainment than fashion, but it was really helpful because I've worked at corporate companies. My company now is pretty small, but it's good to understand the corporate structure and just what that kind of looks like from the inside. So those were all nourishing, and acting classes. That was really fun for me. And I think there's still relevance and things to be learned from theater if you're interested in theater, no matter what you're doing, even if you're not acting.
Cool. I'd say in terms of the academics, for me, my relationship to it as far as being like a launching pad for my career is a little fraught. You know, I was a film studies major at Barnard. It was a lot of history and theory, as it should be for film studies. But I think the trick is that it's hard to understand from that academic perspective how many career opportunities exist in entertainment, because there's so many different types of careers you can pursue. I didn't even know what distribution was. I didn't realize companies had to exist to actually put the movies out into the world until I started interning. Internships were incredibly valuable for me. I would say that was the most important thing for my career. Started first internship at a film festival, didn't feel like that was a perfect fit for me. Interned at a development and production company, also called Pressman Films, which was lovely, but not quite the right fit. And ended up at a PR agency with an internship. And they were able to hook me up with my final internship, which was at the Weinstein Company, and that's where I got my my first job. So arguably nourishing and then very not nourishing in other ways to have worked there. But I was able to intern in a ton of different departments: acquisitions, publicity, marketing, theatrical distribution. And that's where I really got to understand the business side of it and really come to love it. And I've only ever worked at indie film distributors since.
Yeah, I mean, I also, I was an English major. I was a double major in film studies and English. And yeah, I can't, plug both majors enough. It really kind of sent me on my way. Some professors I loved were, Maura Spiegel was incredible. Took her senior seminar. Rob King, Richard Pena, Annette Insdorf, Professor Seamus, they're all incredible and like changed my life with their classes. And so yeah, I think, just I loved the kind of humanities aspect of thinking about film. And that really propelled me into my internships. A lot of them, like I said, were in entertainment writing. So my first internship was with Tribeca Film, and I was their digital content intern. So I was writing a lot about, it was very local New York, which was fun. And I got to write about like what was happening that summer and, free screenings, and also, Tribeca's initiatives and films. And then I went on to intern for IndieWire, which was great. I think that was a really formative experience. You're really kind of thrown in, and you are writing so fast and so much all day, from, longer form articles to short, like kind of more promotional, I guess, news, just faster, pieces. And I also interned at HBO in film programming, which was really eye-opening. I feel like I got to learn about, that kind of intersection between business and the more creative side of things, and learning about, like library deals and output deals, and just kind of seeing the back end of that, which was really fascinating. And that internship with HBO led me to my first job at HBO. I was an executive assistant in the distribution department. And that was also, you know, really interesting, and just kind of learning about the immense operations behind selling HBO as a product. And I got to see like the cable side of things, which was really interesting, and it definitely has gotten smaller since I worked there, but it was good to kind of see the roots of all of that. And in between my job at HBO and now my current job at Field of Vision, I kind of bounced around doing freelance work and also internships again, but with JV8 casting agency, which was really cool. That was like a brief stint, but they've, you know, done incredible ensemble casting for like Good Time and Euphoria and these kind of crazy, you know, contemporary films and TV shows that are out there. So that was really cool. So yeah, I feel like, you know, the film writing element is kind of the through line of my experience, and that was definitely born out of my majors and the work that I was in the writing I was able to do at Barnard.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. I feel like the question I just asked lent to a lot of really great advice for our students already, but I want to give some space to that separately. What advice would you give to students who are interested in pursuing a career in film and TV, but are unsure of where to start?
I would say reach out. I mean, one of my greatest mentors literally came about from this panel when I was a first year at Barnard. And she's actually one of my closest friends now. And I literally went up to her and was like, tell me everything. People are busy and whatnot, but I think usually people can find the time to chat, and networking is so important. It's hard, but the more people you know, the better. My current boss, I just joined Dorothy Street in August. And my current boss I met through networking, someone just saying, I think you guys would like each other. And obviously we did. And so I think being able to, you know, vocalize your questions and listen to different people's careers and ask for what you need. And do you know this person? Would you be willing to connect me? It goes a really long way. And I think especially, I don't want to speak on behalf of all the panelists, but I'm sure that I can. I think the Barnard community is really a strong one. And so it always flags for me when someone went to Barnard, because we all had that shared experience. So I think don't be afraid to reach out. When I was in college, I would literally pause like a Netflix show at the credits and just read them and be like, what's a script advisor? Like, what is development? I definitely didn't know about development. And so also looking up people that way and saying like, who wrote the script for this show? And then that's a screenwriter. And how do I get in touch with their intern? How do I become their intern? Just being kind of creative. Everyone on this call has got to be savvy and very smart. So just trying to get yourself to the people whose careers you admire would go a long way.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think that's really great advice. Beyond that, I would say just intern as much as you can, and that's a great avenue for building your network. For me, it was a lot of just like searching online and trying to find what's available as far as internships, and I really wanted to have a taste of a little bit of everything to know what I wanted to do and also what I didn't want to do in my career. I think both in terms of internships as well as full-time employment in the future, you know, especially earlier on in your career, jumping around is kind of key, both for gaining experience, gaining knowledge, and being able to climb the ladder a little bit faster. But the networking portion, I think, is really essential. It's, you know, it's painful and it's so icky to have to like cold call people and reach out and set up meetings. But the good news is that people, much like myself, love talking about themselves. So people are always willing to do it and sit down and get a coffee with you. Other than that, I think a very crucial thing is just following the trades. However you feel comfortable doing it, whether it's just following them on Twitter, or in my case, I subscribe to Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Screen Daily, The Wrap, just like making sure you're up to date with what's going on in the industry, as well as like what the industry is finding important. I think it's a really good way to just really have an understanding of the business in general.
Yeah, I think that's all incredible advice. Networking is definitely incredibly crucial. And I would add on to that, just like when you do take those meetings, just know what you want to get out of it and like have your questions ready. I'd had ones that I feel like I didn't come in as prepared as I wanted to, and like I could have gotten more out of it. So it makes you feel more confident too, I think, when you walk in and you have those questions under your belt and just information that you want to gain. And yeah, I cold emailing and just getting really granular, like Lily said, about what you love, who made it, what all the different jobs are, and like chasing those people down, because they are more often than not pretty accessible if you get to that granular level. And so, yeah, and I also agree with Abby, I kind of wish I had done more diversified my experience a little bit more, instead of like chasing like a kind of one track thing. And I just think it in the moment that you're in, being able to intern and try things out, just definitely diversify your experience, and do a lot of things, and meet a lot of people. And what else do I want to say? I think also, for me at least, keeping the kind of cultural intake alive is also important. Like I'm always trying to watch old films and new films, and expand my horizons in that way. And it really just helps, keep your vocabulary, I think, like open and wide. And just the more that it can really enrich your relationships, and also your confidence in who you're speaking to and what you want to do.
Great note. I recommend Letterbox to help with that.
Very helpful.
As expected, that was all amazing advice that I know our students are going to really carry away with them today. So we're reaching our final question for our panelists. For our students in the room, please prepare your questions, and as soon as we're finished with this last one, you guys can start unmuting yourselves and asking our panelists. So what are your hopes for your own career and for your profession in general? So it's a bit of a heavier question.
I keep it kind of vague in this instance because I'm learning all the time, but I hope to stay creative and to keep finding people's whose careers I admire and learning from them. And also just to never let anyone be threatened by ambition. And that's actually a piece of advice I'd give to all of you. Never let anyone be threatened by your ambition. It's a really stark change leaving a place like Barnard, which is so incredibly empowering, and going out into a world which sometimes is more empowering and sometimes less so. So, when you enter the working world, not everyone went to Barnard, as we all know, but either find the people who did, kidding, but also seriously, or just find people whose values kind of align with the ones you learn here, and stick with them. And I sort of hope to continue to find that, and also continue to be that to other people.
That's great. Yeah. I think just generally being in the indie film space, just doing everything you can to keep indie film alive. It's getting harder and harder and harder for, it to be financially justifiable to even make indie films at this point. And so, figuring out ways to keep that alive, and also trying to always stay at the forefront of distribution and the business side of it. Like fast channels, I think, are exploding like crazy right now. And it's a very interesting development in sort of like the cyclical nature of distribution. And for my career, it's hard to say. I feel like I worked really hard to get to the point that I'm currently at, and I work for an incredibly small company. I feel like getting to a certain executive level was like a very big dream of mine. And now I feel like the next big thing is equity. When do you get to like have those bigger stakes in the company that you're working for to really be invested in its success?
Yeah, I also am keeping it kind of vague, I guess, but just being in a position where I can kind of champion artists that I really believe in, and contributing to hopefully like a healthier marketplace for independent filmmakers and artists. And yeah, that's how I came to arrive at my position now at Field of Vision, is kind of just chasing the art. I hope that doesn't sound too lofty, I think that those are definitely the high level aspirations, just to continue that work and get deeper into it, and also sit at the cutting edge of what the future looks like, and yeah, just kind of advocating for a healthier system.
Sarah, that was so beautifully said. Thank you for that. Thank you all for that. I'm going to open up the floor to student questions. People can feel free to just dive right in and mute yourselves.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm a senior, so obviously I'm about to head into craziness. But I was wondering, how long did it take for all of you to get your first job? Like, I know a lot of you mentioned that it came, most of them came from internship opportunities. But I haven't been doing that nearly as much, so I wasn't really sure how long is the period of when you were really able to break into it after graduation, because that's a little bit of a concern of mine.
Totally, I can take that one. And anyone, Sarah, Abby, please jump in. I do remember feeling like my friend group at Barnard were in much more traditional paths and had these jobs in February and March, and I was the only one who didn't, and that was totally normal because everyone else who wanted to go into entertainment also didn't have a job. The thing about entertainment for the most part is that you hire a bit more on the spot and closer to when you need what you need. And so I definitely had a gap. I was looking at jobs beginning in May, and I'm sure this will happen to you. I got really close to one and, got an offer, and then there was a hiring freeze, and then they couldn't take the offer. And that's really normal too. Entertainment's unfortunately really unpredictable. I think I got my first job in August to start after Labor Day. And I remember thinking that was not that long. And I had other friends who had a way longer gap. But I just don't know anyone who graduated with I don't know many people who graduated with a job in this industry. So don't fret. That is very typical, at least in my experience. But Abby, Sarah, I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah, totally agree with the notion that it happens very last minute and goes very slowly until it goes very quickly. Because the moment they decide they want to hire you, they want you to start yesterday. But of course, you're waiting months sometimes in the process to get the job. I was very lucky because I interned at Weinstein for a full 12 months. I did the Barnard JTS dual degree program. So I was doing a 5th year at JTS for the master's. And so I was able to continue the internship and qualifying as an unpaid intern because I was technically still a student. And I probably had the rare opportunity where I knew around April that I was going to be able to start the job at Weinstein in June after I graduated, because I started as the receptionist, as entry level as you can get. But they had lost a receptionist and they were using temps. So they just, were like, okay, we'll wait until you graduated and we'll switch out from temps to you. They didn't tell the temp that, so that was an awkward conversation on my first day. But yeah.
Yes, I got my first job in July, so a couple months after graduating. But I will say, I kind of wish I had taken a little bit more time. I was panicked, and I was just I'll take the first thing I can get, and which is of course I think also going to school in New York, you want to stay, and it's a really hard city to live in and stay in, and so that can definitely push your circumstances, and I don't blame myself for wanting a job immediately. But it did kind of keep me in a place that I wasn't entirely interested by the end of. And it took a lot of courage, and it was really scary to leave and figure out what to do next and how to kind of pivot, even though I was within the realm of entertainment, but not quite in the way that I wanted to be. But yeah, I'll say that, my internship with HBO definitely propelled me into a system. I feel like they really took care of their interns and wanted people to come back. So that was fantastic. And they got me into interviews and, kind of pushed me forward, which was super helpful. And yeah, I agree that like, you know, the entertainment industry moves at its own pace, and it can be really hard to plan. And it's definitely a different, kind of beast compared to other industries. But I had friends who were in other creative fields who I think were maybe a bit riskier than me, and I saw it pay off for them in really great ways, where they took a temp job or a part-time job, and it just snowballed into immense opportunity and like really a lot of creative responsibility. So in the beginning it can be really tough, I think, and scary, but I think if you put yourself in a place where you want to learn from the people around you, it can be really gratifying. But it can require sticking it out a little bit in the beginning, and trying not to compare yourself too much. And it's tough, but yeah.
Thank you all. I'm seeing Camilla, you have your hand up. Go for it.
Hi, thank you all for speaking with us today. I wanted to ask, so I'm very interested in like creative producing and in theater, but also film and everything. And so I was speaking with someone who highly recommended like the MFA program for producing and arts management at Columbia. And so I wanted to hear like your insight on like graduate programs in the entertainment industry and in the arts, and if you think like what your take on it is, like if there's a particular program that you've heard good things about, if I don't know if you recommend against it. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I can tell. Oh, I have a very close friend who did the MFA program at Columbia, and she went to school. She went to Tisch, and so I feel like she had like a very much more like she wants to become a director, and she is directing. And so from what I've seen from her vantage point, I think it's an incredibly like just the amount of training you get and the incredible professors that you have access to. I feel like they really support you with an incredible network. Sorry, can you repeat your question though again?
It was just hearing like what your thoughts about like graduate school in the entertainment industry and in the arts. And if there's like a particular program you've heard good things about, or like anyway, just wanted to hear like what your feelings are about it or what your thoughts are.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think from what I've seen of it, it's very much for if like a screenwriting program or a directing program can definitely like propel you, and just also like let you leave with an incredible body of work. And I feel like when you're trying to make that happen with a job, it can be tough. It requires a lot of time and space and resources, and for that reason, like it can be really helpful. And but at the same time, like I considered it for a little bit, but didn't, just because I was afraid of losing that time, I guess. And when you are pushed out of a program like that, it can maybe be a little disorienting to know where to go and where you need to start, and what's translatable, I guess. But Lily and Abby, I don't know if you have insight to that.
My only thing I would chime in is that I imagine the networking opportunities would be really strong out of it, but on the business side, I would say it's not super helpful, but obviously you're looking to pursue a more creative side of the industry.
Yeah, I would think the networking would be great. And on the other end, I think whereas there are some fields where you absolutely have to do that, of course it's mandated or it's just the recommendation. This is not one of them. And so I think I'm sure the pros certainly outweigh the cons, but the truth is I know a lot of creative producers, many of whom did not go to school, some of whom did, or grad school, I should say. And I think when you want to creatively produce, working on a project or working in development or working as a story producer immerses you in a way that is just direct. And so it's not to say it cancels out grad school, certainly not. But my first job out of Barnard was at an agency, and people always joked that it was like the entertainment grad school. And of course it's, not, but it was kind of the first just immersion into the industry and it was more intense than I could have anticipated, but I learned so much. And it's, people really do make the joke you do it instead of grad school because you meet all these people and you're kind of at the center of the business. So I think you could go either way. I know that's not super helpful, but it might be helpful to know that it's probably incredibly valuable, and you can also probably find that value piecemeal, but a bit more through directly working with creative people.
Thank you.
So Christine, I see your hand up. I think Gemma was a few seconds before you in the chat. So I'm going to ask your question and go to you. Did you tend to do internships during the school year or over the summer in college? Were there certain other film clubs, extracurriculars you were involved in during college? And this is a question from Gemma once again.
Yeah, I can take that. My first internship was the summer between junior and senior year. And then I had one fall semester senior year, spring semester senior year, and then I continued with the 12-month internship at Weinstein. So I had a number of internships. At times I actually wished I'd started earlier. And I just can't stress how invaluable I found it. An interesting, I don't know if this still exists, but an uphill battle I faced was that there were a number of internships that required me to receive course credit because they were unpaid, and I wasn't able to do that with Barnard. So that's a unique thing you might have to work through. Luckily, I think a lot more internships are paid these days, which makes that a non-issue. In terms of extracurriculars, yeah, I tried to get into like the what's it called, the Ferris, that film screening society. I don't know if that still exists. And it was just like completely obtuse, and opaque. I couldn't figure out who the hell was in charge. But I actually ended up doing my own little mini movie club in the dorms where
Oh, Abby, we can't hear you. You cut out.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes. We heard until you made a club movie at your dorms.
Oh yeah, I just made my own, and it was great. But that's it. Yeah.
I interned, yes, my first internship was the summer between, well, actually I interned with a place called Guest of a Guest my freshman summer, which essentially paid you in parties, and they like had you go out and, cover events, which was like fun in its own way. But so that was my first internship, I'm just remembering now. But then after that, yeah, it was during the summer. And then my junior year, I interned during this spring summer semester, so kind of a balance of both. And in terms of extracurriculars, I wrote a little bit for the I don't know if that still exists, at Spec, and I also produced like a couple of short student films, which was really great. And like I said, I had a close friend who went to Tisch, so they were making films all the time, and I kind of just jumped in and wanted to see what they were up to. Yeah, other than that, I wasn't too extracurricularly involved, I guess, but they were still really formative and great experiences.
And I definitely interned. I interned over the summer, probably every summer. I was really lucky and applied and got a Barnard grant, I think once or twice, to do that, which I'm sure still exists and was really awesome. And I also worked at Barnard pre-college program, so I could live at Barnard while I was interning, which was an awesome opportunity. I did intern during the school year as well, but I did not do it every semester. And I'm grateful that I didn't, because as valuable as it is, I really wanted to enjoy time at school, which I think everyone should do. And my most rigorous internship was that Vogue one, and that was in the fall semester. And after that, I think I stuck to springs and summers because it was just a lot to handle at the same time. Film clubs or extracurriculars. I was a very brief creative director for the Barnard Bulletin, which I hope still exists because that was awesome. And that was fun, and writing and photo and layout and design and that kind of thing. And acting, as I've mentioned, acting classes and writing. And probably was working on like a few independent projects, but I don't think I was part of any film clubs. I think that probably stuck just in my major category.
So, Christine, the floor is yours. And Sophie, I see you in the chat. You're next.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys so much for coming to speak with us. I just wanted to add, like, for Beyond Barnard, my first panel, like, I'm a graduating senior, and in my freshman year, I was at a Women into Entertainment panel, and Lily was there, and that really stuck with me. And it kind of, I mean, I was already gonna major in English and film, but it really gave me the confidence to, or at least the kind of inspiration to want to pursue film and media and entertainment, or just the arts in general as a career. So it's like a full circle moment right now. I'm curious about, I guess, as someone who's, I guess, graduating from a liberal arts college, kind of when you're in kind of interviewing in these jobs and internships, you're kind of going against sometimes with like art school people or film school people. And I think I'm someone who was really interested in development. I've tried a lot of times. I've gotten opportunities in media in different kind of capacities, but I feel like I'm curious about, as people who are now in higher positions and have also gone through kind of up the ladder, what do you kind of look for, or what do you often find impressive, or there like instances where you found that someone stood out in a certain way that helped give that push? Because I think getting the foot in the door in the networking process is always kind of difficult, and it's a lot of luck as well. So I don't know if that it could be specific or general, but I'm just curious about kind of how you can amalgamate your experiences or your interests and really kind of like show people, and like you know you got it, but just kind of landing that opportunity. Yeah, as someone who's like been on both sides of it, I'm curious what you guys think.
I can start. That warms my heart, Christine. Really happy to see you. And I remember chatting with you at that panel and beyond it. So that's so awesome. And I'm so happy that I'm also having that full circle moment. I think that it's really hard. I mean, the truth is, whatever we say is totally true, but we're probably not all the powers that be that come together to make those decisions, which makes it challenging. When I'm looking for someone in development, development's funny because no one can have experience in it until you do it. It's not, there's no training ground. Like, I was lucky to be a development assistant at Barnard for Amy. But that was total luck that I got that opportunity. And I think what she probably saw in me, I would guess, is reading, writing, and curiosity. And I look for that too. I think it's really about attitude. I think that entry-level roles have a myriad of things to do. Some things are more exciting than others. And how do you plan on taking on all the tasks, big, small, and anything in between? Strong writing, and taste. I mean, I like just being able to chat with someone I'm hiring as an intern or an assistant or a coordinator or what have you, or a producer. What do you like? What are you watching? What are you interested in? What kind of stories do you want to tell? And I know those are sort of soft skills, but it's kind of just humanity. It's like, are you interested in the arts? Are you interested in documentaries? And in my case, and can I see some of your writing? And it's as simple as that, which I'm sure is a mixed answer because it's not simple getting these opportunities, but that really is what I look for. And then sometimes companies, depending on what they need, are looking for a certain skill or a certain type of person. But I've hired a lot of people in my position because I generally have a development assistant role available. And I'm always looking for curiosity and excitement and eagerness and just a good attitude and someone we can kind of show the ropes to.
I agree. Yeah, like ravenous to learn more, I think, is always something that's really appealing when hiring, either for interns or for full-time roles. Because, I work in the business side, and yet everyone I work with has liberal arts degrees. So they certainly didn't learn any of the practical skills while they were in school. It happens when you're on the job, and that's fine. I think the question that I've asked when hiring a lot of interns that I think is very telling is to ask them what movies they've seen recently and what they thought of them, and then also like what movies they're looking forward to seeing. And I find that to be really telling about how aware they are about the film landscape, because if all you're talking about is the next Marvel movie, then you're not really tapped in. But if you're talking about like the latest film and I'm not counting A24 either, but if you're talking about like the latest film from like a Music Box or a Grasshopper or a Greenwich or an IFC or someone like that, then it shows that you have a level of awareness and curiosity about the industry that I think speaks very well.
Yeah, totally echo all of that. Definitely an open mind and curiosity, and just showing that like you don't know that you know or you know that you don't know everything yet, and that you want to know more, and that there's always more to know. And definitely the taste question, you know, I've been asked that, and I definitely like my ears perk up when I hear what other people are passionate about and how they talk about it and what their point of view is. And yeah, definitely maybe like flexing just kind of a general awareness of like, or maybe this is just my kind of film studies is coming out, but just like the history and how you're connecting it, and that, you know, we're not, this moment wasn't just born out of right now, you know, this is all connected, and kind of showcasing that you understand that and that you see that. I feel like that kind of makes me, you know, not trust, but just kind of feel like we're on the same page, I guess, about just being open and always wanting to learn more, and looking backwards and looking forwards, and that kind of that openness.
So I'm going to smush Sophie and Emmanuel's question together because it's regarding application materials and internships. So on the topic of internships, how did you navigate looking and applying for those opportunities? And how did you start to prepare your resume before your first film internship? And layering into that, what are some skills that you highlighted before you had sort of professional experience in the industry?
I think navigating looking for internships, totally overwhelming. I mean, I would start directly with what you like and zoom out. So I would actually just look into those companies or those people, and you know, check their websites. And you can also email people directly, say, you know, curious if you're looking for an intern, what have you. And if you're not getting responses, kind of make it a little more general. You know, if you like TV, start with the company that made the thing you like the most, and then zoom out to the companies that made other things you liked. Or if you want to work at a network, you know, go to HBO's website and try to get in touch with a recruiter, or talk to someone you know who works at a company that you like, or works for a person that you like if you're looking to work for a more creative person. The resume question is such a good question, and I'm thinking, so if someone else has an answer, but I imagine I highlighted my passion and you can only be honest with your experiences. So any work experience you have, highlight it, and people looking at these resumes are smart, and they can put together that, you know, babysitting means that you're responsible, and waiting tables means that you can juggle a lot at once, literally and figuratively. And it doesn't matter. I think when someone's young, it's the expectation that they haven't worked in this industry. So you're not behind if your resume is a bunch of mixed things. You just need to get that first job so you can put it on there. But I didn't do this, but I see it now and I like it. I think I would write a log line or something that's like, I am a passionate, you know, blah, 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 whatever it is you are, however you identify, because that's usually what I end up talking to the person about. And it's very often not the granular aspects of their past job. So I think highlight what you think you're good at and what you know you want to channel into your work.
Yeah, I mean, my one small note about resumes is make sure that they are properly QC'd. There are no typos. It's well formatted. Do not send a Word doc, send a PDF. There are many resumes that I have dismissed out of hand because they are a mess and illegible. And this is, you know, your one opportunity to make a good impression. So I get very picky about that.
Yeah, I think for my first resume, I kind of corralled like what I felt like I could bring, you know, or just kind of highlight like what would be unique about my perspective in being an intern. I grew up in a lot of different places, so I like wrote about that in my cover letter, and like, you know, I also, you know, just like writing samples from the eye and little experiences like that, like anything to kind of show piecemeal like what you can do and what you're interested in. I think I definitely took advantage of the cover letter. I don't know if people actually read them, but I was like, this is my one chance to, you know, show how I can write and to be persuasive and to talk about myself. So I feel like that was really good, like just training ground to learn how to talk about myself.
But also having like a coverage sample, you know, speaking of what you're saying about having like an example of your writing, like half the time with these internships, they're going to request one anyhow.
Absolutely. Yes, get your coverage writing down. That was something that took me a while to figure out. Because again, like I don't know if they're teaching this in the film studies major anymore, but I kind of wish they gave you like a little 101 on that. It's so like it's just the first thing that's asked of you in those opportunities. So yeah, exactly. Just any kind of writing sample that you can show, I feel like is always a good proof of what you can do.
All right, we have time for one more question. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask our final question for the panel? Fernanda, I see your hand up. The floor is yours.
I was just wondering about like the differences you all encountered in working for like major or interning or working for major companies, like and the difference between working for like more indie companies, and if you feel like you should have different skill sets if you're working for either one, or if they kind of like merge together. So just wondering about your experience with those two different like sides of the industry.
Yeah, I think it's really great to have both experiences. And I don't think you need to be a different type of person to work at either. My first two jobs were at big companies, UTA and then HBO. And then I worked at Imagine Entertainment, which is a studio, for 5 years. And I just came over to Dorothy Street, which is a small production company. So I've really kind of done both. I think they both have inherent value as you're learning and as you're growing. They're very different experiences. One's not better than the other. You know, I think when you're in a bigger corporate structure, there are really proper channels and resources, and you have a very clear understanding, I would hope, of what your job is. And there's a lot of people who can help you, and it's sort of a big system. Smaller companies, I have found incredibly empowering. There are far fewer resources, so you are actually doing a lot of different jobs under your title. But there's a close-knit nature, and it feels incredibly rewarding because you're working directly on a project, probably, if you're in a smaller group, or you're working directly on the thing that your group is focused on. Sometimes in the bigger systems, you are a very, great part of something much bigger that hundreds and hundreds of people are working on, which is also really exciting because those are sometimes massive projects. But I think, I don't know if I starting out at a big company, I really appreciated it because I learned so much, but I don't know if I'd recommend, I think smaller companies really teach you hands-on, and bigger companies are a little more independent. It's sort of like thinking of colleges, actually. There's the smaller schools like a Barnard or a bigger school, and they both have massive pros and cons, is my take. But Sarah, I'd be curious of yours.
Yeah, I've consistently gone to smaller and smaller companies in my career. I think that's also indicative of the indie film industry at this point. But I think my take is that the smaller the company, the more you get to learn, the more skills you get to develop. Whereas my experiences at the bigger companies I've worked for, you hone skills, but in a very specific area. What I love about my company, it's 4 people, and so I get to do a little bit of everything. I'll spend some of my time on Photoshop. I'll spend some of my time doing data analysis in Excel, most of my time doing emails. But it's really nice to be able to. That's what I gravitate to. I also think just like the nature of someone who goes to Barnard is very like proactive and wants to learn more and wants to develop a lot of skills. So I feel like I've always gravitated towards those types of roles.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I also worked at HBO and then went to a very small company, field division. We were like 11 people. And I think that working at a bigger company, you definitely have more resources and more structure. There's a bit more, just structure around growth, I feel like, and more of a legacy, I guess, that like you can follow, and that's really helpful. Being at a smaller company, definitely you're more visible. and you really have to jump in. My first month in the job, my AP couldn't attend a panel at this film festival in Amsterdam, so she asked me to do it. And I had to sit at this like table with incredible execs, and it was totally trial by fire, but I was really glad, you know, she trusted me to do that, and that I somehow found it in myself to do it. And so I've just been consistently surprised at like the amount of opportunity that's there if you want it. And that, yeah, you get to learn about every little, you know, just a lot of different facets of the filmmaking process. And yeah, you just kind of have to be ready and willing to learn on the spot. But that's what makes it incredibly exciting, and can, like, you know, help you leave with a lot of great skills and experiences.
Thank you so much for all of your thoughtful answers. And just thank you again to our panelists for joining us today and providing such thoughtful insight. For our panelists, you'll be hearing from me. I'll put everyone in an email so that you can exchange contact information. For our students in the room, we have one more Career Insights on November 29th, Careers in Nonprofits. We hope to see you there, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.